Hello everybody, welcome back to this next part of our Rome 2 DEI Seleucid campaign. Of course, as usual, it's not really any different here. I'm Kunagusis. With me is Ecorix, the guy who is overseeing the editing process and make sure there are absolutely no cock-ups made, even when inevitably he does make a cock-up.
Thanks for the encouraging words there, Kunagusis. Where would I ever be without you?
I'm sure you know what to say, with friends like me, who needs enemies?
Yes, with you comes extra caveats and precautions to keep an eye out for.
Yeah, so we are just mopping up the remnants of a Parthian army we defeated in the last session, I believe.
Yes, that is definitely correct. And I should know because I oversaw it.
Yes. And we've got another army that is encircling Nisa, which is the Parthian capital, where we get access to their special warhorse resource.
Very interesting warhorse details there.
Well, it just means that it's a resource that means we can buff our cavalry up in that province. And,
Handy dandy.
Yeah, pretty much. Because that region, Nisa, is where the Nisaean horse is meant to come from.
Nisaean horses. Okay.
Yes, there's not a lot of information I can definitively and authoritatively point out to. But the gist is they were considered to be among the biggest horse breeds in the ancient world.
Were they considered the best?
Well, they were just considered to be among the biggest and strongest, which was useful for stuff like cataphracts. Now, I should caveat to say the horses in this time period were no bigger than ponies. They were quite small. And even
but the Nisaean horses must have had this huge size worthy advantage to them.
The Nisaean horse is probably as big as the Przewalski's horse, which is still pretty small by today's standards. It's just that by the standards of that time period, they were considered fairly big and bulky enough. Which is important if you're trying to have something like cataphracts, because you need a pretty big, sturdy horse to handle all that armor.
Well, yeah, I mean, with the amount of stuff that they'd had to put on them, I'm assuming that big horses were kind of a necessity at that point.
Yeah. So that's the way it works. And so it's in Rome, in DEI, it is a special feature in some units to have specific horse breeds. I've talked about this before, but in DEI there are about 4 special horse breeds. Numidian, Maripos, Nisaean, and Thessalian.
And Nisaean would probably be considered the best out of the 4 of them, seeing as how they're the biggest.
Kind of. There's a slight caveat that the Numidian horse is different to the others. So basically, barring the Numidian horse, the other 3 provide bonuses to speed and mass. Certainly to mass, with the Nisaean providing the most. Numidians don't provide much in the mass department. They're more about being kind of agile and nimble, so they provide more speed bonuses, like immune to terrain penalties in their speed.
Makes sense.
And maybe also guerrilla deployment, but yeah. And of the 3 breeds that add to the mass, they go from lowest to highest: Thessalian, Maripos, and Nisaean. Thessalian is a Greek kind of horse, like the northern parts of Greece, where they had better cavalry, like Thessaly, so there was Thessalian style horsemen. Maripos is into kind of like a Gaulish, Belgic breed, so you'll find a lot of Gaulish Gallic cavalry units will have access to that breed.
Mm-hmm.
Higher tier ones will have it, and then the Nisaean is made to the Parthians. Although the Seleucids have access, the late Agama of the Seleucids get the Nisaean horse. The Roman, what they're called, Ala Batavorum, Batavian Auxiliary Cavalry, they get the Nisaean, not the Nisaean, the Maripos horse. But yes, that's the way it works. And then of course the auxiliary Numidian cavalry of the Romans get access to the Numidian horse, which makes them pretty handy because they're pretty solid. They're pretty solid cavalry units. The Numidian auxiliaries.
Do they have the most agility?
Well, again, it's basically you're getting a unit with pretty reasonable armor and, you know, the equivalent to fairly heavy, medium heavy cavalry of most Roman auxiliary cavalry.
So it's the most well balanced out of all of them.
But they have the speed bonuses that come with Numidians.
What about the size of their horses?
The Numidian horse, I think, was meant to be relatively small. But the size differences is not conveyed in the game. Only just through stats, hidden stats, bonuses.
Okay then.
I know they've tried to experiment with changing the size of the elephants to match the different variants, but they haven't been able to get that to work.
Too much coding to work around, I'd say.
So it's just not really so much coding. I think it just causes weird problems with the models. They get all skewy if you try to change the size of the elephants. I remember seeing some of Cam's experiment results pictures.
Oh yeah, I remember.
In the Discord. So yeah.
That didn't exactly turn out too well for them. So yeah, I can see their hesitation.
Well, again, he's experiment. Cam likes to tweak and experiment things, you know.
But I can understand their hesitation to actually follow through with the experiments. Let's just say
that the results were not too great, so unless they can find some workaround, that's just where they're at.
Not their fault.
We are up against a Parthian force, a mixture of an army and a garrison.
Oh dear.
Lots of cavalry. Even cataphracts. Unless they're the Parni nobles, which are not yet cataphracts.
Cavalry and cataphracts. That must be some backup force there.
Well, yeah. Cataphracts are quite the tough opponents. That heavy charge and armor.
Especially if they're Parthians. Parthians. Especially if they're Parthians.
They do have the best cataphracts in the game. Seleucid cataphracts aren't anything to sneeze at, but Parthians have the strongest.
What would you say the Parthenian cataphracts have over the Seleucid ones?
Better numbers, their stats are better, but their mass will be better because they'd have the Nisaean horse.
Well, of course. That makes sense. In terms of horses, what do the Seleucid cataphracts have?
Seleucid cataphracts have whatever's the regular default horse. Nothing too special about them in terms of the horses. The later Gaia, which are kind of cataphracts, have the Nisaean horse. So yeah.
Would the Nisaean cataphracts have a better chance of going up against the Parthian cataphracts, if that's the case, seeing as how they both have Nisaean horses or whatever? Nisaean horses.
Or Nisaean horse. I suppose they'd have a possibly better chance, but they'd still probably struggle. Although the thing is, it probably depends more about who gets a good charge in first.
Would Parthenian cataphracts have a better charging ability?
I think they might have a better charge bonus, but they also just have more of them. There's 120 in a unit versus 100 of the other types.
They get an extra 20. pretty handy.
Yeah. It needs to reflect the fact that the Parthians were big horse people.
They were horsemen. They were horsemen of the apocalypse.
I suppose you could look at it that way. They did demolish a Roman army. Don't know the details. It's the Battle of Carrhae.
But they were pretty devastating in that particular battle, were they?
Yes, but it was a combination, I think, of cataphracts and horse archers and just lots of ranged troops in general. Pelting down the Romans, led by Crassus, I believe.
Raining down hell from above, as they say.
I suppose horse archers are going to be quite a pain to take on because they'll keep running away from you and shooting their arrows.
Do they not have... I would assume... Wouldn't you think that they have, like, close quarters combat training as well? Just as,
well, their
like, a
job
precaution?
is mostly to skirmish. And so... and the thing is, to do close combat, you'd probably have to put your bow away and get, what, a sword and shield or something? Bit messy. And if your job is primarily just to run around skirmishing, shooting arrows, and even that idea of running away from the enemy while shooting your arrows is still an effective tactic. Like, you can use a false retreat.
I guess that makes sense.
So
I don't know much in the way of military training. I just imagine
plus,
this
again, you're
scenario
also
where...
talking about, a lot of the times, you're not talking professionalized armies. It's provided by the state, like in the modern day. A lot of the times, armies in the ancient world are like levies of... call them locals, who equip themselves and have whatever skills and training they have from that.
Very DIY in that sense.
Sort of. The fact is, an army is expensive, and not all states have the resources to finance and maintain a standing army.
They got to get they got to get creative and improvise on their own.
So I suppose
terms.
most communities just relied on the idea of you defended them, your property, or you took up arms to protect your community. I suppose it's just the nature of the society at that time. There wouldn't have really been that kind of top-down structure in a sense. It wouldn't have been as common.
It was all very ramshackle, but dedicated regardless.
Like, the Romans were kind of unique in that they maintained such a thing, but they stood out in that regard, and that took time. Like, the Roman Republic, for much of its history, its army was a levy of just citizens who took up arms when they needed to.
Mm-hmm.
When campaign season began or something. They weren't... It wasn't until the late Republic we get to the eventual development of a full-time professional army.
But I assume the army, before, like, the development of, like, better armies were still, like, decent enough in that regard. They were still really pretty well organized and efficient regardless.
Well, yeah, like, the Roman military of the mid-Republic, like Polybius describes, is still a solid army.
It's just
just
after the development, after
it
that
just
second stage
wasn't-
came around, they were a little bit more efficient or better developed, let's just
I
say.
guess it's just that it eventually shifted into becoming a more professional full-time army. But yeah, so we've conquered Nisa, well, we raised it, so we're just building it up now.
Building up what we've already torn down.
To make it Greek.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Nisa seems to be up and running perfectly as a Greek state now.
Well, we're just starting to develop it.
Stepping stones.
So our army is undergoing some possible replenishment.
On their way over to Mars.
And now we have this one little issue here. So, you saw the UI being all transparent. That was a glitch, a bug. I went to fix it by reloading the save, but I forgot to unpause the recording. So here we are. A battle outside of a Parthian settlement. Probably in Bactria.
Can you tell which kind of factions we're fighting?
Oh, it's Parthia we're fighting.
Parthia, okay. We have a good few Hittyroi on our side, so that should be handy.
Well, we've got one Hittyroi.
Oh, okay. We've got Hittyroi, Terreo Proroi.
Yeah, Pontikoi Terreo Proroi Makar Proroi. That's our Pontic Terreo swordsmen.
They're the good ones, are they?
Well, they're just another type of Terreo sword to have.
Ah.
We have our Galatians, the Katawiros Calgo. Katawiros just be like battle men. What was battle man, I suppose.
They're trying to break through the defenses there.
Our Terreo spears are engaging the enemy spearmen on the flanks.
Doing their best to avoid the spears from above, or arrows from above. I couldn't tell if they were spears or arrows.
Yeah. They're javelins.
Ah, javelins.
There's the large shaft sticking in the shields.
Yeah, I can see that now, actually. We're making some decent progress. We're breaking through increments by increment.
Our other Galatian swords, our heavier Galatian swords, are pushing through also.
Slow and steady wins the race.
And our cavalry and elephants are attacking the enemy from the other side.
very handy indeed. Doing a number on the Parthian spearmen. Parthian spearmen. Sorry.
We've got a Thracian Terreo's cavalry there.
Our elephants are doing a number on the Parthians there.
Scythe chariots there, but they haven't done anything yet.
At this point, I doubt they'd even be useful at this point.
It's a little bit too enclosed of an environment for them to be that useful.
Did the chariots just pop up at random, or...?
They moved around.
Ah, okay.
So our elephants are coming down.
And they're breaking through their defenses there. Doing quite a bit of damage there.
Mostly doing morale damage.
Their morale is already low at this point. How much more damage can the elephants do?
Our Galatian spears have come down. But the enemy's all routing.
It's a full throttle assault. It's not even an assault at this point, it's more of a massacre. They're badly outnumbered.
It's a rout, and now our chariots are charging in.
The chariots that are somewhat useful, except not really.
Kind of.
So you can tell, like, that one's not even doing anything. It's just in the middle of, oh, I thought we were gonna kill some folks, but no, I changed my mind. Let's go back.
Well, they're doing their best. It's a bit messy, especially if they're going through my friendly units.
Yeah,
and
you can say
very fragile.
That. Sure, let's go with that. Yeah, that's the kindest term we'll use for it. We've got the Parthian spearmen on the run there. And that's that for them.
Yep.
Boy, we're decimating Parthians by the milliseconds these days.
Well, we're certainly doing quite some significant damage to them, but still have a ways to go. 'Cause they're
Step
quite
by step,
large.
every battle won is a morale lost for them.
Morale.
Morale, whatever. It's every step taken is another morale loss for them.
So this is the settlement of Marv in Hariva. So we sack and raise.
We stack them with the brothers of Xenophon.
Good old Xenophon. And then try to sell the settlement to Parthiva, my satrap, who's been pretty loyal to me so far.
They better be.
Because my whole intention is I didn't want to hands-on control this. I wanted to leave it to the AI, my satraps.
Is that generally a good idea?
The state of Rome 2's AI, and not fully.
Well, either way, Marv seems to be in decent condition there.
Perhaps,
And are we going to go for diplomacy with
you could let us have
Pergamon.
some money.
and we decide to reject democracy because we decide to reject diplomacy because who needs diplomacy?
Yeah, because Pergamon's not a democracy, they're a kingdom.
We have desertion and the terror of Phobos. How dare they?
Yeah, there's no supplies in the area, so they're taking attrition.
That's not good. Let's see, we decide to have the centaurs advance up towards Marv to help them resupply and regroup, I suppose.
In part to try and get supplies back in order, but it's also just to help put more pressure on the Parthians by having another army in their front. And then removing the Terra Phobos back towards our home territories to replace some of the lost units. This army is led by our king Antiochus II.
Oh, okay.
Did you see how over the general picture said Basileus?
Yeah, I did.
That's Greek for king.
Ah. Old Greek or like modern Greek?
Well, Basileus would be more in line with the ancient pronunciation. Modern Greek, they'd say it more like Vasilevs.
Ah.
So the word is changed, but still broadly the same word.
I see we move our forces, the brothers of Xenophon, off towards Amul.
Yep.
Bactras seems to be in decent condition, and we decide to move the Spears of Ares off towards Nisa to further help develop the area a little bit more.
To put additional pressure on Parthia, as we see, bring them close to Kath. So the idea is probably to besiege that. I'm moving the Heraclidai back towards Parthiva, or friendly territory, so they can replenish.
Got to keep the pressure up somehow. We move the Harpy's Claw to meet with our brothers with the Spears of Ares. We decide, I'm assuming we decide to move both our forces up towards Karth.
Yep.
Or Kath.
Kath.
Kath, yeah. Yeah, I said Karth initially. I corrected myself to say Kath.
Yep. You did indeed.
We're moving the Might of Heracles up towards Ecbatania.
Ecbatana. That's a Persian capital. Under our control, but yeah.
Everything seems to be running smoothly there.
Yeah, so far we're having public order issues as usual.
We're moving the Harpy's Claw up towards Pirada. Or is that it? Is that it? Ferrada?
Frada.
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 Nah,
Probably easier to say it that way.
Frada. Okay. Is that not the correct pronunciation for it?
Well, presuming it's Greek, and we go by ain't classical Greek, then it'd be more like Prada.
Oh, I see. Okay.
But it's convenient just to say Frada.
Anyway, Brothers of Xenophon are up against towards the garrison army of Kath, I believe it is.
No, it's a provincial capital.
Ah, my bad.
Okay. Bit slow to load. There we go.
Yes, for some reason it's very, very slow to move.
Yeah, sometimes it just happens with the replays.
Ah. Can't be helped, I suppose.
Not really, not that I know of.
There's our Thoreoporoi.
Yes, Terrell Poroi.
Two bouts of Thoreoporoi there.
Yeah, Terrell Poroi and Terrell Poroi Uzonoi.
What's the difference between them?
Terrell Poroi, Terrell Spares, Terrell Poroi Uzonoi, like Terrell's light soldiers. Basically, just the Terrell Poroi in this case are just spears, and the Terrell Poroi Uzonoi are swords.
Ah, okay.
See, the Terrell Poroi Uzonoi are like an upgrade over the Uzonoi. Because we had a unit early on called Uzonoi, and then in Terrell's forms they got Terrell shields, it became Terrell Poroi Uzonoi.
Okay, okay.
We have our Royal Peltas there fighting, alongside our Galatians. No, not our Galatians, they're the Pontic Terrell swords. And our Terrell swords.
Doing a number on them so far. That's good.
Well, we do outmatch this force.
Boy, we're really raining down hellfire on the Parthians this week, aren't they?
Well,
Aren't we?
our slingers are doing a fairly solid job, I like to think. Never underestimate the sling.
Where would we be without our trusty sling?
Ooh,
That's nasty.
yeah, that's warfare for you.
You can try and defend against our onslaught, but nothing in the end will save you. Oh, they're losing more morale by the milliseconds.
Probably are steadily losing morale.
Why wouldn't they? There's nothing they can do.
Well, they're outmatched. So they're beginning to rout. They're beginning to surround them a little bit.
Here comes our other Thoreoporoi.
Galatians there.
Spearmen are getting surrounded.
Now we're fighting some weak enemies. And that's their
More
archers.
kindling for the pyre.
Yeah, I think that's their archers. Our Galatians are fighting.
Surprised they don't have any horseback archers.
Those are not
Or-
too major part of Parthian garrisons.
Really?
At least I don't recall. It's whatever's just gameplay design, you know, and what they factor is probably good for balance.
What about an actual history? Did the Parthians never really have horseback
Oh,
archers?
they used horse archers a lot.
Surprised they don't utilize them in the game then.
Oh, they are utilised in the game.
On the Parthian side?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
The original general's bodyguard is horse archers. Then they have regular horses, and they have another heavy unit of horse archers with lances.
Oh, okay.
And then they
Just-
also, in their late reforms, get access to cataphract horse archers.
Guess I'm just kind of surprised they haven't showed up in this particular.
Well, because we're
battle.
fighting a garrison.
I suppose that makes sense.
A garrison's its own distinct set of units. Shit. Our elephants crash into the rear of this blob, causing a mass rout. And we have won the battle with another UI glitch. But that's the end of things here. Hope you enjoyed today's video. And yeah, we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.